So you hate word problems, and there's really no secret as to why, right? There's a lot of information that you have to sort through. Then you have to go ahead and set the problem up with the right math, with those keywords, and then you actually have to calculate the right way. And on the ASVAB, you got to do that in less than about a minute, 10 seconds every single time. So I'm Anderson, your ASVAB coach, and in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to tackle word problems so that you waste as little time as possible and then be confident that you're going to get the question right once you put your pencil on paper. So with that said, let's get started. So like I said, in this video, we're going to be going over how to tackle word problems. And so I'm going to be going over 2 examples with what I'm about to teach you. But here's the thing. Here's the number 1 secret to tackling word problems. Here's the number 1 secret, so pay attention. That secret is don't read the information. Go straight to the question first. I'm going to say that one more time. Don't go through the information, just go straight to the question statement. If it only has 1 sentence in the question, great. If you have 3 or more sentences there, a word problem, well, just go straight to the question. Because here's the thing. When we want information, do we end up getting the information all at once, or do we pose a question first? So think about how you search for information online. You have to put in the actual question in Google before you can actually get the information that you want. And that's because you know what you're looking for, right? And now let's think about another example. Let's go ahead and think about, well, the whole analogy of you don't get in your car and drive unless you know where you're going. I mean, that's a pretty self-explanatory statement, right? Now, let's go ahead and apply that to word problems. So let's go ahead and say, the average person, and this is a true statement because I've been doing this for about 11 years now, and I've seen this way too common. Most people, what they do when they read a word problem is they get fixated on the numbers first. They go straight to the numbers and they start calculating together with those numbers and then just hope for the best, maybe sing a Hail Mary here and there, right? But the thing is, that's not going to get you anywhere at all. And the reason, again, is because before you get in your car, typically you know where you're going to go. You know what the destination is. You know where you're going. And so when you start a word problem, you need to understand what the question is, what you're answering, what you're trying to figure out. All of the extra information, it's just extra information. It really is, until you know what its purpose is. So the numbers, don't get fixated on those. Just get fixated on what the numbers mean at first. But before you even do that again, you need to know where you're going. So let's go back to the analogy. You get in your car, but before you do that, you know where you're going. Great. Now, when you get in your car, you can't just speed off. Because remember, if you have a car, you know good and well that the car needs to warm up first. The oil needs to get hot. And 2, you need to go ahead and make sure that everything's all strapped up. Your seatbelt's on. You got to make sure that you warm the car up. You got to make sure that all these things are happening so that your car doesn't break down. Because I promise you, if you just slam the gas when you get in the car, well, guess what? If you keep doing that after a while, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get to your destination, especially if you didn't really target where you're going to begin with. So I know this is a little lengthy of an analogy, but guess what? This is going to help you out tons. So back to the word stuff. So with the word problem, again, first things first, read the question. Highlight those keywords. You have to analyze. You have to let yourself warm up. You have to understand what it is that you're connecting in terms of the information. And again, I'm going to show you an example of how this works in a moment. But again, you have to understand what the question is, highlight those keywords, and then make that connection before you go in and dive into the information, before you start hitting the gas and slamming that thing and going 100 miles an hour. Because again, the numbers don't matter unless you know what they mean. One more time, the numbers don't matter unless you know what they mean. I gotta say that a million times. So let's get back to it. Once you highlight those keywords and you make that connection, then you have a better sense of the direction that you're going in, because you know what the goal is and you know what information you have, which allows you to paint that picture for yourself. So again, in terms of driving, you got to get in your car, you got to let that car warm up, and you have to identify where you're going and how you're going to get there. That's the same thing in math. Again, keywords, use the information to make the connection and make your plan. So then, in your car, once you know where you're going, how to get there, and why you're doing it, boom, then you just drive off because your car is warm, it's all good, and there you go. Same thing with word problems in math. You want to analyze first, give yourself that time to really get those gears going in terms of those keywords, and then you look at the numbers and you say, okay, that number represents what I needed, and this number over here represents another piece of information that I can use. Oh, look at that. That over there is extra information. Don't you hate it when you are falling for that trap of using information that you don't need? Everybody does. And the thing is, it happens because, again, we're not disciplined in terms of analyzing before we approach the problem. So when you analyze, that gives you the opportunity to, again, search through your memory and say, okay, what does this all mean? What do these keywords mean? What information might I need to answer this question? Now I'm going to go in, look at those keywords, every instance of that, and figure out everything that matches up. And once you have that, boom, then you can go ahead and attack the problem like the animal you are, and then get that problem right and move on forward. So with that said, enough of me talking. We're going to go ahead and look at 2 example problems. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Number 1 here, Ben has 4 times as much money as Brandon. Brandon has what did I say? Read the question first, right? So we're going to ignore everything there. Ignore all of this stuff over here. Just ignore it. Just go straight to the question statement. And that question statement is, how much money does Ben have? That is our key here. How much money does Ben have? That is what we're looking for, all right? That's exactly what we're looking for. So let's just highlight some things here. We're looking for how much money that Ben has. Those are the keywords. Money and Ben. How much money Ben has. That's it. So whoever this Ben character is, we're looking for how much money he has, all right? So we're looking for how much money Ben has. Again, that's your only concern. That's your only concern, all right? So then look, now that you understand that, all right, we want to know how much money Ben has. That's the key to the question. Now we can go back into the question and look at every instance that talks about Ben and his money. That way we can make connections to the problem and only use the information that we need. Again, that's what it's all about, wasting less time. So here we go. If I'm going ahead and highlighting everything that I need here, well, we're looking for everything that includes Ben. There's Ben right there. Great. Ben has 4 times as much money as Brandon. Okay, so really what does that mean? Well, that doesn't give me an exact number for Ben, right? It doesn't. But this sounds like the type of problem where you're going to have to connect a bunch of pieces of information. And that's okay. You just have to be patient with yourself and let the problem develop. So we have Ben, and he has 4 times as much money as Brandon. So Ben, what I know about Ben right now, again, is he has, actually, let me go back to red here. He has 4 times as much as Brandon. All right, so that doesn't get me the answer, but it looks like I'm going to have to know a little bit more about Brandon if I want Ben, right? So let's go ahead and find some more information here. What do we have? Well, additionally here, we see that we have Brandon right there, and he has twice as much as Bradley. So Brandon, he equals twice as much as Bradley. All right, so now this is going down a rabbit hole, right? But we're still focused. We still know that Ben is connected to Brandon and Brandon is connected to Bradley. Now let's see what Bradley, if there's any other information on him. Oh, for sure. Bradley has $10.28. So let me just go ahead and change Bradley's color here to purple. And I see here that, again, Bradley has, and again, you're not always writing this out. But I'm just writing it out to help you visualize, all right? I want to help you visualize. Because again, we started with the question. We want to know how much money Ben has. All right, money Ben has. So we're going straight back into the problem. And we said, all right, Ben is 4 times as much as Brandon. And then we also found out that Brandon is twice as much as Bradley. So we want to go ahead and take Bradley, which we now have as $10.28. If we multiply that by 2, we get Brandon. And then whatever Brandon is, we multiply by 4, and we get Ben. So this all needs to happen within 20, 30 seconds. Quick. The majority of your time in a problem is setting it all up. So this needs to happen as quickly as possible. Anywhere between 20 and 40 seconds. Because the actual calculation, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not quick at calculating, you need to be. Download a mental math app or do whatever you need to do to practice consistently so that the actual calculation is not what holds you back. Because you can multiply, add, subtract, and divide. We know how to do that. Let's do it quicker now. So here's another way that we can shorten the time that this problem is going to take us. Because again, we could definitely start with $10.28, multiply it by 2, then multiply by 4. We can definitely do that. But ask yourself this question. If you multiply something by 2, and then you multiply that thing by 4, what are you really doing? Well, you're multiplying by 8. Because times 2 times 4, that's the same thing as times 8. So you could end up going, again, the 1028, you can again multiply it by 2, then by 4, or you can just straight up multiply it by 8 and save a lot of time. So I'm here to show you exactly how you can save that time, and here it is. by multiplying by 8. 1028 times 8, you can go ahead and just do that. 8 times 8 is 64. 6. 2 times 8 is 16. Plus 6 is 22. Then 0 times 8, that ends up being 0. Put the 2 there. And then you have the 1 times 8, which is 8. And so you have $82.24. That's what we end up with. And that represents our final answer because we ended up setting ourselves up. We started with the given information to connect it to what we needed to figure out. And once we had that set up, boom, then calculate, then go to town. The last thing you need to do is calculate, guys. The last thing. The first thing you need to do is just worry about the question itself. Because there's no point in looking at the numbers if you don't know what they represent. No point at all, guys. No point at all. You have to start with the question, develop your plan, make sure your plan's good, and then go ahead and attack it with the calculations. And as you start this out for the first time, it's going to take a little while to really get it down, to be disciplined and only concern yourself with the question. Because you're going to have decimals, you're going to have fractions, you're going to have percents. It's going to feel scary at first, but you have to discipline yourself to only focus on the question. The added bonus to this is that you're going to be able to identify where you get stuck in the problem. Like if you're calculating and you don't know why you're calculating, boom, you're stuck right there because you are not understanding what the question is about. If you catch yourself not being able to interpret what those keywords are, then boom, you need more practice just knowing what keywords mean. And then, like 4 times and twice, you need to know what that means. And so if you catch yourself unable to make a plan, then it's really more so about your ability to translate the English into math. That's really what that's about. So you can check yourself at each 3 of these phases in terms of, again, what's the context, like what's the question, then what's the content, like what's the math that I need to use and the information that I'm using, and then the calculation. These are the 3 C's to problem solving. The context, the story, then the content, the math, and then computation, which is calculating. And there it is. So let's go ahead and show ourselves question number 2 here, and let's use this same strategy. Again, go straight to the question. So here we go, straight to the question, then go ahead and make that plan, and then calculate at the end. So here we go. Root deposits. Again, don't worry about that. We're going to go straight to the question. How much interest will she earn after 8 years? All right. The key facts here. Right there. Let me use purple actually to highlight this. Interest earned after 8 years. Right there. That's all you care about. Those are the only keywords you care about. Interest and after 8 years. Now, when you read this question statement, you want to go ahead and ask yourself, well, what is it that I know about interest? And after 8 years, that just seems like it's a condition of the problem. They're just saying, hey, after this amount of time. But what do you know about interest? Well, remember, there are 2 types of interest here on the ASVAB. One is simple interest, and the other is compound interest. So just to be very clear, you should be fishing in your mind for this information before you actually go into the actual word problem. This is because you want to warm yourself up. You need to be ready to use the information that you have in any formula or any procedure or any equation that it's useful in. So again, interest, simple and compound. Simple interest is simply put, you just go ahead and find the interest one time and you keep earning that amount every year or however long, they're saying. But again, simple interest, you only calculate the interest once and then you just multiply it. Now with compound interest, it's like this. If I have $100 in the bank and I earn my interest and now I have $105 in the bank, I earn interest on the $105. And then boom, let's say next year it's like $112, then I'll earn interest on that. With simple interest, if I put in $100, I'm only ever earning interest on the $100, not what I earn because of it. It's not compounding, it's just simple interest. You keep it simple. So if that didn't make too much sense, no worries, let's get to it. So again, we're worried about interest after 8 years. I know that there's 2 types of interest, and I clearly see right here occurs simple interest. So in your mind, you need to be locked and loaded and ready to go, thinking that, boom, simple interest, I know exactly what that means. It means that I'm only going to use the principal amount or the starting amount and consider interest from there. The interest that I earn is not going to count back to what I'm taking the interest of. Again, it's only the $7,500 there. So again, root deposits that much money into the savings account that occurs the interest. The rate is 5% per year. So with that said, because it's simple interest, we're going to go ahead and set it up the following way. We're going to say that we are looking for 5% of $7,500. All right. And that's going to give us 1 year of interest. Because we're looking for 8 years, we will then take this and then multiply by 8. Multiply by 8 years. So does that make sense? Does it truly make sense? Because if it doesn't, pause the video, go back a couple of seconds here, and really hear me out in explaining it again, because it's way too important for you to miss this right now. Again, I started off with the question, interest after 8 years. I just looked for wherever interest was stated, 5% interest, and I know I need a deposit or an initial amount or starting amount, which is right there. And what type of interest is it though? Oh, simple interest. So boom. As long as you know your basic sets of facts about interest, the rest is gravy. It really is. Because now all I have to do is take 5% of 7,500. Step 1. Step 2, multiply by 8 years. My plan is done. Now I just have to quickly calculate, and that's it. So first step, number 1, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take that 5% of 7,500. How do you do that again? Remember, before you multiply percents and numbers, you need to go ahead and convert that percent to a decimal. So with that said, this is 0.05 multiplied by 7,500. Remember, percent per 100 or out of 100. So to turn 5% into a decimal, divided by 100, which moves the decimal place over to the left 2 times. So 0.05, not 0.005, not 0.5, just 0.05. So with that said, let's go ahead and do that calculation. And what we're going to get is, well, whatever we're going to get. But let me go ahead and throw some mental math your way to help you out. Because whatever this is, you want to multiply it by 8. So technically speaking, again, this is being multiplied by 8. So technically speaking, you're multiplying by 8 after the fact. But remember this, everybody, because again, I'm always trying to save you time. Why multiply by 0.05 and then multiply by 8? Why not just kind of help yourself out? And here's what I mean. 0.05 times 7,500 times 8, think about it like this. Is 1 times 2 times 3 the same as 1 times 3 times 2? The answer is yes. They're both 6. They're both going to end up being 6. And so really what I'm trying to get at here is that you can actually shift this over and just say 0.05 times 8 times 7,500. That's going to make my life a lot easier. You want to know why? It's because 0.05 times 8 gives you 0.4 or 0.40, whichever way you want to say it. You can multiply it like this. You multiply it like that. And when you do it, just make sure that you're putting the decimal place back in its place. So 5 times 8, that gives you 40. And since you had 2 decimal places, go ahead and put that back. So again, that gives you 0.40 or 0.4, whichever way you want to consider it. So with that said, from there, what we're going to do is take that 0.4 and we're going to multiply it by that 7,500. So with that said, that's going to be pretty easy right there. So just move the decimal place back 1 time once you have it. And here we go. 0 times 4, that's 0. 0 times 4 again, 0. 5 times 4, that's 20. Put that there. And then 7 times 4 is 28, plus 2 is 30. Take that decimal place and put it back, giving us 3,000. And there we go. That's how much you'll earn after 8 years. Specifically, that's how much Ruth will earn after 8 years. But again, guys, it's not about the calculations. That's the last step. Those are the last steps to every problem. The first steps are always going to be, again, what's my question? Keywords. Connect it back to the problem, and there we go. Make your plan and follow it. The more you can do that, the better you'll end up being. I can promise you that right now. This is not going to happen by luck. This is not going to happen by hoping and wishing when you see those numbers and just try to add them together or subtract them or whatever. You have to, absolutely have to have a game plan when you start every single problem. And so again, it's the 3 C's of problem solving. Start off with the context, the story, the problem itself, like the question. Highlight those keywords. What do those keywords mean? Okay, cool. I remember what they mean. Now let's go back into the problem. Let's go for that information that we need, set it all up, And then once we have our setup right, once we have the blueprint to the building, remember, you don't want to build a building without a blueprint because obviously people are going to die. So you want to go ahead, plan that thing out, and then be absolutely sure that you're going to execute it the proper way. That's how your confidence can skyrocket. That's how your chances of being correct skyrocket. That's how you can finish one problem and know that you'll get the next one right. But if you're not employing any sort of strategy when you're doing word problems, then every word problem is going to feel like a brand new one every single time. But I promise you, there's a connection between all of them. So again, guys, I'm Anderson, your ASVAB coach. I hope you learned today how to tackle word problems the right way with me. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and comment on this video. And if you liked it, give it a like. But don't forget to subscribe to this channel. That way you can get more videos just like this. So with that said, everybody, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Check the description of this video for all of our free and paid ASVAB resources to help you pass on your next attempt. Again, I'm Anderson, your ASVAB coach, and I'll see you in the next video.